Morning, Anthony. How are you this morning?
Morning, Chris. Yeah, very well, thank you. Good to see you.
And you. And glad to see you back in the showroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I have to say, it's nice to be back here. I just find the whole working from home is. I used to think it was nice, the 1 or 2 days a week, but to be back and where work is work and home is a great feeling, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I do understand that. I mean, it is one of the key discussions of this time is how we're going to get, or how London and the big cities are going to get their employees back engaged in companies.
Yeah.
I think most people are expecting 15% of employees back by the end of the summer, and maybe only 50% by the year end.
Sure.
And actually, the view is that coffee will play a key role, interestingly enough, in how we do re-engage people. Because I think the one thing people have been missing is a good cup of coffee. I know that's certainly true for me.
Yeah, and for me, naturally. I think, look, it's a big subject, and for me, I suppose I'm very interested, Chris. I'm sure you've done a lot of research around whether leaders actually want their staff back in the offices. I'll be interested to kind of start there.
Oh, that's a really good question. Throwback. Actually, it's mixed. Actually, I'm finding it's actually often leaders who don't want to come back in the office as much as the managers. But actually, I do think it will revert back. Cities always historically have reverted back. I mean, the interesting thing, I'll go off tangent for 1 second, is that we haven't had a major pandemic for about 400 years since the Great Fire or since the Great Plague. So we're not really used to it, are we? So but history always shows that cities recover and people will come back. I just think the view generally is it's going to be a 6 to 12 month program to get people back in.
Absolutely, and that very much ties in, which is why I was interested in your understanding of it, because I've been talking to a large number of our clients in the city here over the last few weeks, and I have to say the feedback's very mixed. There's some companies that have no plan whatsoever. They're just seeing how it pans out. There's companies that have closed their office and they've found that they can work from home and that's what they're going to do. And then there's other companies that are returning in stages. So we're finding some companies, September seems to be the magic month at the moment. A lot of people are saying that we're looking forward to starting back on reduced staffing levels from September with a gradual increase towards the end of the year with a kind of a maximum staff return starting in early 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And to be fair, I do think what's going to get people re-engaged is services, and how we look at services and sustainability is going to be obviously a key piece as well in that. And actually, how you can access great coffee is going to be important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the reality is that from the I suppose from the seniors that I've spoken to, are very concerned about getting staff back into the office, and they're looking at the whole scope of what they offer right across the spectrum. And as you say, for me, I'm still amazed actually at the place that coffee is having, because I think people are realising that they're missing a good coffee working from home. That's one of the, I know for some of our staff, one of them mentioned to me only a couple of days ago, I can't wait to be back in the office so I can have a decent cup of coffee. And I think that's a resounding no across the industry, because the reality is a lot of people don't have decent quality coffee machines at home. And even prior to this whole situation, the whole coffee conversation was really looking to accelerate in terms of the quality that people are offering in the workplace. And now that's just taken on a whole new level, aside from all the technology that people are looking at right now in terms of touchless. That's becoming a really key focus for people, looking at how they can get a cup of coffee without having to actually touch screens or buttons. So that's becoming very important. So we've done a lot of innovation around that. But the quality of the beverage, I think, is still absolutely paramount.
I think that's right. And I think the other interesting piece as people come back is whether companies feel relaxed seeing their people go back on the high street. Because we were having a conversation last week, weren't we, Anthony, that you had quite an interesting experience on the high street going to a cafe?
Yeah, absolutely right. Just to recap on that, so I went into a cafe, one that I would not have thought anything about previously going into, and they're serving food that's not pre-prepared, so not packaged, and none of the staff behind the counter were wearing any masks or gloves, and there were no signs up around social distancing or anything like this. And quite frankly, I looked around and I saw a couple of customers in front of me that were being served in this manner, and I didn't feel safe, and so I walked out of the unit and went to somewhere else where clearly there was more care in the preparation of the food, and I think that's going to be something that everybody's going to be looking for going forward. On the flip side of that, do we really still want our staff to be going out when there's I know you know Dean at Fooditude very well, and his concept of delivering in food now in individual packaging. I think contract caterers are very quick to adapt to these new scenarios, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And how's lockdown impacted on you personally?
Personally, well, if we start from a business perspective, which in turn impacts me personally, but look, it has had a significant impact on the business. Our whole thing is serving coffee and coffee machines to the workplace, essentially. So the very fact that people haven't been in the workplace drinking coffee, it naturally would impact on us. So for me personally, it is just the whole thing about actually being here, having the team around me. I find it very hard. I'm very much enjoy being with people. I thrive off other people's enthusiasm, and so to be out of in a home environment, which is essentially where I've been for the last few months, I very much like to keep work at work and home at home. So to kind of try and mix those things together, I found a challenge. So I have to say it's good to be back here in Farringdon and starting to see some of those green shoots coming through again.
And do you think you will change because of the lockdown period?
Yeah, look, without a doubt, we have to change. There's no option. We're putting in measures right across the business, just from a staff well-being, which is our first priority, as we do a gradual return to work. But then engineers, which we have a large fleet of engineers that cover and service our customers nationwide. So even looking down to the finest detail in terms of their contact points with our clients, how they approach our clients, how they then are looking after the machines and then leaving sites and doing all of that with these new measures in place. So that requires a huge amount of training, investment. So yeah, it really has and continues to do so, to really forcing us to really look at everything we do.
And how do you see the recovery process? Obviously, I've said I think it's going to take 12 months. Do you agree on that? Are you finding the same? Or
I think so. As a wider thing, I believe it will be 12 months, probably as a minimum, before we see things returning to what we would call normal. However, as the city is always ahead, I do feel that, well, I know that there are companies which are moving, which are having office refurbs. They've got to carry on because their current landlord is saying you've got to be out by August, October, whenever it is. And so they've got to find new space to house what staff are around. And so in turn, they're looking for coffee machines, water solutions, etc. So, there are very much projects out there that are happening that will have to happen. So I do think it's a question of being out there, being open for business, and being there for when clients need us.
And I do wonder whether actually coffee will get a surge, or something, because actually people will want to be able to help themselves to a cup of coffee quite easily, and actually not go to public spaces or into restaurants, etc., etc. So I do wonder whether there'll be more people looking for more coffee machines, question mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. What we're finding, I suppose, is where typically they would have had a main breakout space, and in times only recently gone by, business leaders would have really pushed and had a focus for those areas to be a collaborative space. Whereas now, with the distancing measures in place, they're looking at smaller satellite T points all around the office area, so that there's not one general communal space that everyone's driven to. It's kind of serving, those smaller areas, servicing a fewer number of people.
And in terms of your own inspiration as a business, because often you bring in lots of European machines, you're always looking to get the best coffee from different locations. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I guess, as I said, innovation forms a massive part of what we do. So we're constantly striving to be the most innovative company out there, which I sincerely believe we are, because we're constantly at the forefront of what's being launched right now. And clearly the whole touchless theme is massive. So again, right across our business, across every fleet, if you like, of different machine segments, we are looking at ways that we can make that a touchless experience. And that's not just coffee machines, that's water, that's vending, that's juice, in every area. So I think that's becoming a real key theme for us, and will be for the foreseeable future.
So tell me a bit about how do you make it touchless? Your machine's touchless, out of interest.
So there's a lot of app-controlled machines out there now, which are coming onto the market thick and fast.
Right.
There is genuinely touchless technology, so that works on a proximity sensor, which I think is a great innovation, because that changes nothing. It doesn't require somebody to pull their phone out, find the app, then find the drink that they want, and then select it, and then have those connectivity issues, etc., which can be a challenge when you've got a coffee machine sitting in front of you that you've just been used to going up to and touching. So this proximity sensor technology is amazing, where you literally just go up to the screen and put your finger over the button of the drink that you're requiring, and the machine senses your finger there and produces the beverage. So essentially it doesn't require any app, doesn't require any change in terms of machinery. So that's just an upgrading technology.
That's amazing, isn't it? And obviously we talked about coffee, we haven't really talked about juices and hydration, because that's equally as important in your portfolio, isn't it?
Absolutely, if not more so. I mean, it's something that's fundamental, that every business provides water for all their employees, so right across the board. So we're looking at tap options, again, that have this proximity sensor technology. Across more basic water coolers, there's touchless options available that are operated by a foot pedal. So yeah, there are some great innovations. We have a whole touchless page on our website that's dedicated to this new innovation. So we're really recommending that people visit that just to get ideas for their spaces as they evolve.
Because last year we did an event together, and actually I always remember is that 90% of us are dehydrated at any one time, which always shocked me at the time.
I basically have a hose pipe connected to my desk 24/7 as a result of that webinar. But yeah.
Because it is about how we access drinks, and actually how we keep people healthy is going to be a key piece also, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Look, this all has to do with, I mean, the mental health side of it, I think, is, again, something that we're seeing right across our business. How this whole recent event has impacted on mental health. It's had a significant impact, even within our own business. And when it comes close to you, you realise actually the stress that this whole event has caused on so many people. And so, yeah, looking at all the ways right across the board as to how we can make that return to work more enjoyable, more pleasant, and indeed more safe is absolutely critical.
I mean, again, the biggest hurdle to return to work seems to be public transport. It seems to be it's interesting, the stats haven't changed at all since mid-May about people not wanting to get into public transport. So it is about how that's how we manage to create services that almost encourage people to take that leap.
Yeah,
is going to be key. What are your own aspirations for the business now? Obviously, you would before the crisis, you were doing superbly well, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a phenomenal Q1, and I think the reality is that we're kind of we've ratcheted down the hatches, and I think our message is that we're open for business. Gavin Pooley, the managing director and owner of Liquidline, very much has a growth mindset, which is great because he leads from the front in terms of the whole piece in taking the business forward and out of this crisis. His whole thing is how we come out of this stronger. So I think our aspirations is to get that message out far and wide that we are open for business, that we've come out stronger. We have an incredible range of equipment here with various forms of technology that are compatible with this whole touchless theme, and we really, I think what we've got to accept is that staff will return to the office. As you said rightly before, London has always returned and it will return again. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and sustainability is going to be a key area, isn't it? And I know, again, this is something you've done a lot of work in.
Without a doubt. Without wanting to get on my high horse around this, I really do feel that this is going to be, again, a huge subject, and it will continue to grow. Particularly now, as we're hearing more and more companies that are thinking very hard as to whether they'll be using crockery. That's a largely debated subject currently, as to whether we'll go back to seeing piles of dirty mugs in sinks and left on the side as we did before. I really feel that probably won't happen. But then, of course, that raises the question, well, what do we use? And so I think people are still going to see the return to the paper cup, regardless of whether it's recyclable or compostable, that they are going to look at that as a backward step when people have really been focusing on how do we be the most environmentally friendly that we possibly can. So I really think that the concepts like Cup Club, who you're very familiar with, I really do think that they will see an uplift in major cities with the concept of delivering in enough reusable cups for the staff for one day, and then coming back the following day to collect the used cups and delivering a fresh set. I honestly have personal belief in that whole concept. I think it's a fabulous concept, and I really do think it's got some mileage, and that whole brand will benefit as a result of the current situation.
And how do you think, going on to coffee, how do you think, because coffee has been in an upward trajectory now for 20 years, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's going to carry on? Do you think people will change their tastes? Or do you think coffee is just something that actually really is fundamental to everybody now?
Coffee's here to stay, Chris. What more can I say?
Well, I know I drink way too much coffee. I love my coffee. But it is fascinating how it's grown as an industry, isn't it, over the last 20 years?
It is. I said to Gavin only a few weeks ago, I asked him, do you think coffee's going to be here? And it was a resounding yes. So, yeah, as part of our innovation, it's only kind of looking at more, what can we do more within what we're doing rather than away from that. So.
Look, Anthony, that's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you for your candor. It's been very interesting indeed.
Thanks, Chris.
Pleasure.